Yoshimo, greetings. I was having a few technical issues. I think everything is straight now. So I'm going to give it a moment for some people to check in. Hold on a second. Okay, if there are any issues with the sound or the images, just let me know in the chat room. Okay. Okay, so I think it should be straight right now. So Yoshimo, greetings. I'm Odwirafo Kwesi Radhamata Khan, Odwirafo of Akwamumana Marukati Fimudi Akwamu Nation in North America within Ojirama, the purified nation, Afurakani, Afurakaiti people, African Black people in the Western Hemisphere. So I wanted to continue with this series that we've been doing. We're dealing with spirit genetic identity. So we talked about Afuraka, Afuraikai, the origin of the term Africa, meaning the land Ka of Afura, the creator, and the land Ka'et of Afuraet, the creatress, that defines us as Black people, specifically Black people. We talked about the origin of the term God in the last session. Amen and Amenet, the great Father, great Mother, Supreme Being, and we talked about how they comprise the Supreme Being as two halves of the divine whole and so forth, and how one of their titles is the great Gan or Gan Ur, that is the origin of the term, etymological origin of the term God and so forth, and we go into detail talking about that. So those past two sessions are on the page. The next session, spirit genetic identity, giving these proper definitions, etymological origins, cosmological origins. We just talked about the origin of the term God, which is directly a sacred title of Amen and Amenet, so it doesn't come from the Proto-Germanic, root and so forth, or the Proto-Indo-European root. That's false. The same is true with the terms religion and spirit. Both of these terms come from our ancestral language of ancient Kamit and Kamit, Nubian Egypt. We prove that in our book. We're the first to prove that of any scholar, Black or non-Black, to give the proper etymology and cosmology that undergirds the etymology and serves and proves the etymology, the linguistic roots, and so forth. So we're going to be reading from, so again, we've published our book, Ojira-Sim, True Historical Anthology. It is a 600-page book. This is the back. I've published 31 books to date, and 12 of them, you see on the back covers, 12 of them, the 12 that deal with true historical information, cosmology, and so forth. Those are the 12 that I wanted to include in this one volume. So it's 8.5 by 11, 600 pages. It's full color. And let me just show you quickly. So, REKHIT HENA SPERET is the segment of the book that we're going to be talking about today. So it's an anthology of 12 different books, and we incorporated them all in this encyclopedia-sized text. This is the go-to text when people want to become enlightened and so forth about our culture. This is one of the reasons we put it together in that volume. And you can get that, since you're a subscriber, follower, you can get that for 30% off, an automatic 30% discount. Now, let's get into this information. Hold on one second, let me see. All right. So in this text, of course, we have the book Afuraka Afuraikai, the origin of the term Africa. We dealt with that in that first, a portion of that in the first broadcast in this that we're doing. We have Kuku Tuntum, the ancestral jurisdiction, showing that Jesus and Moses and Muhammad and Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Sheba, Abimelech, all these characters never existed of any form or of any race and so forth. We have Ankh, the origin of the term yoga, Karakasa, origin and nature of the chakra. But we also have REKHIT HENA SPERET. And let's get to it. All right. So the subtitle, as you will see, is etymology and cosmology of religion and spirit. And then we say ancestral religion is spirituality. There's a false notion propagated first and foremost by the whites and their offspring, pseudo-spiritualists, pseudo-New Age spiritualists within the white, population, putting forth this false dichotomy between religion and spirit and saying, well, I'm not into organized religion, I'm into spirituality. That's a false and fraudulent dichotomy. Real religion and spirituality are identical. It is fake religion, false religion, pseudo-religion, which is incongruous with spirituality. It is the whites and their offspring who corrupted our ancestral religious practices when they invaded ancient Kamit and Kamit, manufacturing the fictional cartoon characters, Jesus, Yeshua, Yahweh, Muhammad, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Moses, Aaron, David, Buddha, Brahman, Yahweh, Allah, these various characters. They took the names and functions of actual deities, corrupted them, and added them to fictional white personages, corrupted the cosmology, and then represented or represented this new corrupted fragment of our culture to us as a new religious practice that they were the authors of and the representatives of. So their pseudo-religious practices, whether it's Christianity in any of its forms, Islam, Judaism, Hebrewism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, and so forth, and their pseudo-esoteric expressions, Sufism, Kabbalism, Gnosticism, Jainism, whatever you want to call it. All of them are pseudo-religious, fraudulent pseudo-religious practices. When you have real religion, then you have real spirituality. Afurai African ancestral religion is the only real religion that has ever existed because we're aligning with the great mother and great father supreme being through the agency of the deities and ancestral spirits, the forces that govern all of creation in harmony with divine order. So, and our venerable, honorable ancestors is an ancestor. So this is what we're doing. We're living in harmony with divine order. The whites and their offspring have no capacity to do that. So they only put forward pseudo-religion, and then they try to double back and say, well, I'm not into organized religion. The organization that they manufactured off of the back of real religious practice, now they're trying to pretend like they're going to shun that and get involved in spirituality, and their notion of spirituality is just as corrupt and perverse as their pseudo-religious expressions. So real religion and spirituality is identical. And we prove that linguistically, etymologically, and so forth. Now, and that's what we explained in the first section of the page. Now, this imagery right here is very important. You see the body of the human being in the ritual provocation pose. When you push out this way, you're ritually provoking, sending energy out and so forth. The head of a sacred bird. So it shows a certain kind of individual engaged in a certain kind of ritual practice and so forth. It doesn't mean that human beings are walking around with the heads of birds. It's talking about sacred animal totems and functions of spiritual entities in creation. Now, we talk about how religion is, in essence, the ritual incorporation of divine law, and the ritual restoration of divine balance. So through ritual practice, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities through ritual that we need to reject in order to restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and thus realign ourselves with divine order. So the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance, these are the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion. We seek to align our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order every moment of every day. And when we make legitimate mistakes, we engage the ritual process to attune to the Great Mother, Great Father, Supreme Being, to see what's in harmony with order, incorporate those things, reject the things we don't need to be incorporating, so we can get back in harmony with the natural flow of divine order within creation. That's the purpose of ancestral religion. Now, let's look at this etymology. This is the term REKHIT, spelled here. This little ovular image is the medut or hieroglyph of the open mouth. The dark circle, the siev, quote unquote strainer siev, is the ka sound. The two reeds together is the e sound, and the little loaf of bread that looks like the top half of a circle is the t. And then you have the determinative symbol of the sacred bird that we're going to talk about, and a man and a woman together. So it's showing a certain class of people who are called REKHIT. Now, so now we're on the origin of the term religion, and then the second part we'll talk about the origin of the term spirit. So let me scroll back up. Okay, so there's a specific text in the papyrus of Ani. And Ani or Anui was a scribe who transitioned. The papyrus that they found was one of the most well-preserved papyri found in Kamit, so they often reference this one. But he transitioned, he had the papyrus, placed in his, at his burial and so forth. He was a scribe. So it says, when the scribe Ani Ma'akeru, the one who's true of voice, when he arrives at the seventh Arit, he says, and talking about his spirit separated from the body, now he's in the ancestral realm. And there are certain regions of the ancestral realm that he needs to pass through to get to the ancestral community and live in harmony with the ancestral community. Just like if you left your home and you had to go through a number of different neighborhoods before you get to your family reunion where everybody's in the house and everybody's having fun and so forth, but you have to go through a number of different, maybe bad neighborhoods before you get there. You have to navigate your way through and find your way through and so forth. This is what it's describing. So it says, when he arrives at the seventh Ari, part of the spirit realm, he says, I have come to you, Al-Sar, the divinity Al-Sar, purified of disordered emanations. You encircle the heavens, you see Ra, you see the Rekhitu, which is a group of people called the Rekhitu, unique one, you from the Sektet boat, the boat of Ra, as he encircles the horizon in the heavens. So he's talking about when he sees Al-Sar, Awusi, the great sovereign of the spirit realm, king of the spirit realm. And we actually have, let me show this real quick. You see, this is Al-Sar, of course, black skin and so forth on the front cover of our book. When he sees Al-Sar, the sovereign of the spirit realm, and he sees Ra circling the heavens and so forth, he also sees the Rekhitu. Who is this class of people called the Rekhitu, which is plural, Rek or Rekhit, singular? And what does it have to do with the origin of the term religion? So Rek, masculine, Rekhit or Rekhet, feminine. multi-layered meaning. First of all, rek means knowledge. Rek and rekhit are the male and female designations for one who is wise, knowledgeable, skillful, and so forth. Aset, the great mother divinity, Aset, misnomer Isis. Sometimes she has the title Aset Rekhit, meaning Aset, the divine wise one. She's the great divine wise mother, the mother of Heru, and so forth. And she's also a healeress. So there exists a class of Afurakani people in ancient Kamit who are called Rekhitu, plural, Rekhiu, plural, and so forth. Specifically, Rek, masculine, Rekhet or Rekhit, feminine. So Rekhiu, plural for masculine, Rekhitu, plural for feminine, and so forth. So first and foremost, Rek, to be wise, to know, acquainted with, to be skilled in art and craft and so forth. Rekhit, knowledge, learning. Rek, science, knowledge. Rek, as the name of the divinity, the god of knowledge in the Duat, the ancestral realm. Rekhit, that's the feminine, knowledge personified. And here you have Rekhit, a title of Isis Sothis, which really means Aset in Sapatit, the star Sapatit, so-called Sirius or Sothis, the brightest star in the sky. In ancient Kamit, we called it Sapatit. Sometimes you'll see it spelled Sopdet, but she's called Aset Sapatit. She's the spiritual force animating the brightest star in the sky when she possesses that star and so forth, and illuminates because it's the brightest star in the sky, and that's her stellar shrine. So when she operates through the star system, Sapatit, or so-called Sirius, and they also call it Sothis, and she brings that illumination. She's Aset Sapatit, but she's Aset the illuminate one. She's illuminating our path in the darkness. She illuminates your path so you can find your way through the darkness. With regard to ignorance, the darkness of ignorance, someone illuminates you so you can find your path through the darkness of ignorance and so forth. So now, then you have Rekhit, men and women, mankind, rational beings. So there's a certain class of men and women who are designated as the Rekhit, plural Rekhitu. And they have something to do with being wise, or can have the capacity for being wise and knowledgeable. So we say it's a group of within the Afurakani population, and there are different representations of this group, as you can see in the imagery right here. So, and they retain the status when they transition. So when they're here on Earth, they're basically a class of priests and priestesses and people who have that capacity to be possessed by spirits. And when a spirit comes down and possesses someone, they're Rekhit, Rek or Rekhit. When the spirit gets inside, the spirit of divine order, who speaks the divine order of creation, that brings illumination to the people, the population. So if we're playing drums and someone gets possessed and the spirit comes down, a force in nature that animates the oceans or animates the rivers and so forth, or the mountains or the sun or the moon and so forth, gets inside the body of a person and speaks through that person to illuminate divine order within the population, to recalibrate us towards divine order or within divine order. We just become illuminated, been given wisdom, knowledge, that which will set us back in harmony with divine order. So the kind of people who have the capacity to receive a spirit like that, retain that spirit, hold that spirit, and allow it to operate through their vessel, that's a Rek or Rekhit individual, a spirit medium, basically. So, and they maintain that status after death as well. Now, so when we read that text and the person had already transitioned, the deceased individual came before Alsar, the sovereign of the ancestral realm, because that person was purified and so forth. Alsar took up his position with Ra in the Sektet boat, if you recall, and it's very critical. When the Rekhitu, when the individual says, I have come to you, Alsar, purified of disordered emanations. You can't come before this great force of divine order that regulates order in creation, and you're disordered or full of lust or malice or idiocy and so forth, or perversity. You have to purify yourself so you can be in the presence of that. So purified of disordered emanations. Once you're purified of that, now you have a purified vessel wherein the ancestral spirits and the deities can enter your vessel and use your vessel as a clear channel to communicate with the population of our people. So when he was deceased, he comes before Alsar, the divinity who's the sovereign of the ancestral realm, and he notes that by virtue of purification, Alsar has taken up his position with Ra in the Sektet boat, and you see the boat of Ra sailing across the sky with the sun in the boat and so forth. And the text says, Alsar therefore encircles the heavens in this boat of the sun, the Aten. He beholds Ra, the creator of the universe, and also the REKHIT spirits. The spirit of the deceased individual endeavors to be pure and participate in the same process as Alsar. In another sacred text called the Emergence of Sekhmet, it's stated that Ra is the creator of men and women and sovereign of the REKHIT. So now, there's a lapwing bird, a sacred bird. We use that bird on the image for the flyer and so forth. And you see the little bird right here, but you see the bird has human hands and arms. Here you see the whole human body, and then the person has wings. Here you see the human body with the head of the lapwing bird. So these are different variations of the same thing. It's a combination of the human being with the bird. So the winged bird, that means flight, the capacity to move between the physical realm and the spirit realm. You're talking about someone who a spirit can fly down and alight upon the person and possess the person. That's what we're talking about. Now let me show you an example of that. And this is from our hoodoo film. Because we're not just talking about ancient Kamit and Kamit. We are talking about our living traditions as well. Hold on, let me see if I can. Hold on 1 second. Okay, it wasn't showing up first. All right, so this is our hoodoo film. On our website, you can watch the film for free and so forth. Hold on 1 second. Let me go back and make sure we can get that. It seemed to have gone out. If it's not playing, then I'll just do a freeze frame of it. Okay, so for some reason it's not showing up correctly. Let me see if I can do it this way. I just took a quick little screenshot of it just to see, just so you can see this, this kind of imagery. Okay, so it wasn't allowing me to show both at the same time, this video at the same time, but you see the individual, he has powder on his body, he's spinning around and so forth. The powder is on the body because he's been possessed by the abosom. He's become a spirit medium for the abosom. This is an Akan, Okomfo in Ghana. Same thing happens in the Hoodoo tradition in North America when we get possessed by the ancestral spirits or deities. Same thing happens in the Juju tradition in North America, the Voodoo tradition in North America, the Gullah and Geechee traditions and so forth. Spirit possession has never stopped. We are still Rekhitu. We're still spirit mediums, a certain class of our people. You find out when you start engaging the ritual process very often, they are pointed out as children, and you know which ones are going to be possessed. They're going to be the vessels to receive the spirits and be possessed and walk as vessels of the spirits and so forth. They get initiated into that. Some of them primarily possess ancestral spirits. Some of them primarily possess abosom deities, and some do. There's a combination of both. But we've always engaged in that process. Now, so when you see that, the bird with the wings or the person with the wings and so forth, that means a spirit that can descend like a bird and alight upon the person, expand the wings and, bat the wings and expand that solar fire energy and so forth, and get inside the body of the person for spirit possession and communication. Now, so that class was called Rekhit and Rekhitu in ancient Kamit. So a spirit medium, a Rek or Rekhit, provokes the energy of the and consciousness of the divinity, the Nsorotu, the deities, and Akutu Aku, the ancestral spirits. By entering into communion with them, such communion facilitates spirit possession. They become a human divinatory instrument and so forth, and they communicate the divine order of creation to us, the plan or Setcher, or Nsheshe of Amenet, Amen, the Great Mother and Great Father, Supreme Being. Now here's the portion where we get into the linguistics of the piece. Now, in ancient Kemet, when you look at the language, there was no letter L or the L sound. There's a rolling R, but there's no letter L or the L sound in the language. The same is true in the Akan language. Now, to compare, in the Yoruba language, there's a letter L. So you have Olodumare, Olorun, Oluwa, and things like that. Babalorish and so forth. But in Akan, we don't have a letter L. You look throughout the entire language, there's no letter L. There's a rolling R, but there's no letter L. So if you have foreign words, an Akan person speaks a foreign word, and that foreign word has a letter L in it, but when an Akan person says it, they replace the L with the rolling R, because the rolling R and the L are interchangeable linguistically, because the rolling R is the ra, ra. And even if you say ka, K-A-R-A, ka-ra, and quickly kara, kara, the tongue is tapping the roof of the mouth once. When you say ka-la, the L, L, the tongue is tapping the roof of the mouth once. So if you say it at regular speed, kara becomes kara, kara, kara. And if you say kala, kara, 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 so kara, K-A-L-A, kara, K-A-R-A, R and L are interchangeable. So that's true, and anybody who studies the Akan language, they know that. But the same is true of ancient Kemet. There was no letter L, there were the rolling R. There are two glyphs for the rolling R. The open mouth, and when your mouth goes it looks like this. That is the open mouth symbol. That is the symbol for the R sound, ra, or ra. The other symbol for the R sound is the couchant lion. Why is the couchant lion the symbol for the R sound? The word for lion is ru, ru, R-U, ru. Why is that? Because that's the sound that the lion makes. The lion roars or says ru, ru. So we replicate that by calling the animal the actual sound vibrations that emanate organically from the animal. So 2 letter R's, or 2 symbols for the letter R, 2 medutu for the letter R. The open mouth, or ra, and the lion itself, the ru. Now, when you look at the term and you do the interchange between the L, so for example, in Akan language, if one was to say mulatto, if you look in an Akan dictionary, since Akan people don't have a letter L, they spell it murato, muratoni, murato, murato. They don't say mulatto, they say murato. They're not even used to forming the L with their tongue. So any foreign word that has an L that an Akan speaker would repeat, they use a rolling R with it. The same is true in the language of ancient Kamit. When the Greeks invaded, they had letter L's in their name, like Cleopatra. If you look at the way it's spelled in the Medutu, when you get to the L, the Medut or hieroglyph that they use for the letter L is the R symbol. So it's Cleopatra, Cleopatra. Instead of Cleopatra, they would say Cleopatra, Re. So the L and R interchange. And why is that important? Because when you look at the term lek or rek and rekhi, rekhi, when the L is interchanged with the R, you have lekhi, lekhi, lek or lekhi. Now let's look at it. Rek, singular, reku, plural, rekhet, feminine, and so forth. In the language of the Yoruba, Southwest Nigeria, term for one who becomes possessed by the spirits of the Orisha and Egungun, the deities and ancestral spirits, is Elegun. Elegun. Gun means to climb, so, and the spirit climbs up the body of the person and so forth, and climbs into the body and so forth. So Elegun is the spirit medium, the one who gets possessed. This term will be transliterated in the Medutu, since it's the letter L and we don't have letter L's. If we want to say, what is the spirit medium? If we translated the Yoruba term, Elegun, into the language of ancient Kemet and spoke it, an ancient Kemeti person wouldn't say Elegun, like the Yoruba person would say. They would say Eregun, Eregun, Ereku, Reku. We've already said Rek, Reku is a spirit medium. The Yoruba continued to say that Eleku, Ereku, Eregun, the spirit medium. They're using the same word for thousands of years, from ancient Kanini Kemet to the Yoruba tradition, same term. And then we show in the Akan language, che or cherefo. Chere means to teach or to show. So a teacher is a cherefo, one who teaches or shows and so forth. But the root is chere. But che also means to bind, to tie together and so forth. But it also means the teaching, act of teaching a doctrine, or cherefo, a teacher or instructor, but chere, to teach, to show, to reveal, che, to bind, to tie together. And of course, when you take a number of different things that you've studied, different items, and you bind them all together, you have a bunch of different words, and you bind them all together, the meanings together in a sentence to make a meaning out of them, or a bunch of different sounds, ka, a, n, kan, can, and so forth. You take the ka sound, the a sound, and the n sound, 3 different sounds. When you bind them together and draw the meaning from them, that spells out can. It's like, oh, that's a can. When you take different ideas and pull them all together to derive meaning from them, you're binding them together. This is how you learn and teach and understand. So che, to show, to reveal, che, to bind, to tie together, and so forth. Cherefo, teacher and instructor. Chere, to show forth, produce, exhibit, present, and so forth. To show, to point out, to guide. And then you have the term adechere, adechere, and that is things, objects, deeds, and so forth that are shown. That's teaching or instruction. And then you have adeche, daybreak, morning, because when the sun comes out, things are revealed, things are shown. So adeche, that which is shown or revealed. Adechere, instruction, teaching, meaning things that have been shown or revealed. And che also means to become clear, visible, and then ade, thing, object, substance, and all of that. So the reason we showed that in the Akan language, because when you look at the term de in Akan, it's a verb that references possession and action. The de, like ade, 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 and are, are, or ade, ade, the d and the r interchange, just like the r and the l interchange. So if you say ade, ade, and are, 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 and are is the same thing because the tongue taps the roof of the mouth once. And we even show in the Akan language the day becomes a re in certain linguistic formations. And the reason why that's important is because the adeche is the areche, areche, that which is shown or taught. Areche is rechet, rekhet, rechet, rekhit, and so forth. So you have rekhit, rekhet, rechet. We say areche, areche. The individual who teaches, reveals, shows, binds together. That also has to do with the spirit medium in the Akan tradition. So we're saying the same thing with the same sounds. Now, so here we say the Akan term adeche, which is areche. Areche is re, che, re, chi, and re, che. Same term, areche. In ancient Kamit, rechet or rekhet. The KH can be a ch sound or a k sound. Just like in English, CH can be ch for check or change. CH can be k for chrome, chronology, and so forth. In ancient Kamit, the little black circle, the CF, that they transliterate as the KH, and can be the k sound or it can be the ch sound, but depending on the dialect. So rekhet can also be rechet. In Akan, we say areche, areche, the one who reveals, who teaches, who illuminates by binding things to them and possessing and so forth. The same as eregun, elegun in Yoruba, which is ereku in ancient Kemet, the one who gets possessed. Now, and then we show that the way it's spelled with the open mouth and the eye denote an opening, expansion, will lead to revelation of sound and sight, and so forth. Now, on the previous broadcast, we talked about Amen and Amenet. They take the form of the great goose and great gander. That's their sacred animal totem because the goose goes out and starts honking or cackling, and they say ga, ga, ga. And when those sound vibrations are released, the waters begin to vibrate. They say in the beginning of creation, Amen, the great hidden being, and Amenet, the great hidden female being, and so forth. They're the great hidden being in creation. Like a great gander, a male goose, Amen began to cackle, saying ga, nga, nga, and those sound vibrations set in motion the primordial waters within the black substance of space. They began to vibrate so rapidly that they created spheres. Just like if you put heat to water, it first begins to vibrate, rumble, and so forth, but then bubbles rise up and explode. So the sound vibrations cause the black substance of space to begin to rumble and become fluid. And those waves generated spheres. When the spheres rose up and exploded, it was the explosion of fire and light that was the creation of Ra and Ra'et. And they began to spiral through creation, the black substance of space, carving out black spheres and penetrating those black spheres and illuminating them, and those became the first stars, and then planets came from the stars and so forth. So that's the cosmology. But Amen and Amenet, as the great goose and the great gander cackling out in the primordial darkness, the sound vibrations begin to move, and they say ga, ga, and so forth. And that's why they're called the great ga. And that literally says Nganga, Nganga, and the cry of the bird is ga, ga, to cackle like a bird and so forth. And we talk about the cosmology of Top Head of Thebes, Nga, to cackle or to quack, the great cackler, and so forth. This is Amen and Amenet seated together, the great father and great mother of creation, called Nyamewad and Nyame and Akan, and Olorun and Olokun and Yoruba, and Lisa and Mawu and Vodun and so forth. The text says, light was his coming into existence on the first occasion with all that exists in stillness for all of him. He, Amen, cackled by voice as the great cackler, or Gan, Gan, Ur, the great Gan, the one who sends forth these sound vibrations. He's the great Gan, meaning the great God, coming into a land that he created for himself. He began speaking in the midst of silence, opening every eye and causing them to look. He began crying out while the world was in stillness. His yells circulated while he had none like him, so that he might give birth to what is and cause them to live, and cause every man to know the way to walk. Their hearts live when they see him. So that's ancient text, poetic rendering of talking about the function of Amen, cackling and so forth in the darkness. So sound as the first manifestation of revelation of existence is the basis of the open mouth medut, being the first medut in the word for knowledge. You open the mouth, release the sound vibrations. The dark circle is the darkness. Those sound vibrations operate upon the darkness, and then illumination ends up happening. So to be wise, to know, to be acquainted with, and so forth. Rekhit, knowledge, science, knowledge. Rekhu, which is elegu, ereku, elegun, the known characteristics of a person. Rekhu, plural, skilled workman, craftsman, and so forth. Now, so the individuals who possess the spirits here when they're alive, when they transition, they have the same kind of function in the ancestral realm. We communicate with those spirits. They come down and possess. They bring wisdom from the spirit realm and so forth. They communicate with us. They're elegu or ereku or adechere, areche, areche, reke, and so forth. As we still call them in Akan and Yoruba, there's still that in the Hoodoo tradition, the spirits that come down and communicate and possess and all of that. And then you have REKHIT, sage, learned man. Then REK, a list, a catalog, statement, summary, account, report, contents of a document, a detailed statement and account, that which is revealed and so forth. Now we get, that's the cosmological foundation. Now we get to the etymological foundation. You needed the cosmology first to understand where this came from. Why do these certain sounds make up the term for wisdom? Why is it a ra first, the open mouth, and then the ka second, the dark circle? So when the open mouth releases the sound vibrations, it acts upon the black substance of space, so it can start creating something out of that primordial black, dark energy, dark matter. So instead of Jew being the term for wisdom or, spirit possession and so forth, knowledge, or that class of people, it's ra and ka, raket, rekhit, and so forth. There's a reason why it's ra and ka, those two primordial sounds. Now, and we have the full cosmology to back that up and the deities that go along with that. Now, religion. According to Cicero, derived from re legere, to go through again, from re, meaning back or again, leger, to read. And then it says see lecture. However, popular etymology among the later ancients and the interpretation of many modern writers connects it to relegare, to bind fast, see rely. Place an obligation on, bond between humans and gods. In that case, the re would be intensive. Another possible origin is religions, careful, opposite of negligence, and so forth. Now, let's go a little bit further. They said, look at the term lecture. The Proto-Indo-European root leg, to pick together, gather, collect. That's leg. So re-leg, to releg or relegio, religion and so forth is to releg, to re-pick together, gather, collect. When you pick things out and then gather them together, when you pick out words in a sentence and you gather them together to derive a meaning from that, to gather, collect, pick out, choose, you're, picking out words and so forth, you're learning and so forth. Now, they said, look at rely, to gather, to assemble, re, and then legare, to bind. Then you look at ligament, to bind, to ligature, legare, to bind, to tie, Proto-Indo-European root, leg, to bind. So to re-leg is to re-bind. Religio is to rebind. And the notion is to rebind you to the divinity. If you get away from the divinity and so forth, and you're trying to rebind yourself, you go through a religious process so you can get back in harmony with the deity. To re, that means back or again, leg, to tie, to bind, and that also means to pull together, to gather together, to collect, leg, to get pull together, that's still binding and so forth. Now, and then of course, re means back or again and all of that. So they're speculating about it must be one of these and so forth. They're not sure, but it's somewhere around that. Now, when they talk about the Proto-Indo-European language family, they're talking about 6,000 to 8,000 years ago, when first, Europeans started separating themselves and speaking and so forth. But what really happened, of course, our people migrated into Southern Europe from North Africa. We established ourselves in Southern Europe and the Near East and Asia and all the way into East Asia and Australia, India, and so forth. Some individuals were drawn into Northern Europe during the last ice age. After the ice age was over, they came back as the bleached out, melanin recessive Europeans, but they still had the roots of the language that they had when they left and separated from the larger group. So when they talk about the Proto-Indo-European language family, the roots of them come from ancient Africa. They didn't come up with their own terms. So when they talk about it, there's a lost meaning, and they're not sure. For example, re meaning back or again, often merely intensive, and in many of the older borrowings from French and Latin, the precise sense of re is a lost in secondary senses or weakened beyond recognition. Impossible to attempt a complete record of all the forms resulting from its use. As we say, there is no lost meaning. The term re, meaning back or again, comes directly from rir in ancient Kamit, to turn round, to go round. And you see the two legs walking. The open mouth is the ra sound. Rir. It's two R's, the two open mouth R sounds. Rir. To go round, you're walking back around. It's talking about when the sun rises in the east, sets in the west, comes all the way back around, and it's back in the east again. That's rir. And the whites in Arab Spring just say re, back, or again. So they stole the re part of religion directly from our language. As you can see in the hieroglyphs, they didn't come up with that. We already had it. That's a prefix. The root is ligin, as we can see above. They say ligio, legere, ligare, leg, and lig. They are unsure of the connection between leg, meaning to bind, leg, meaning to read, rooted into pick, together, collect. Now, it's not, again, since it's a L, that's a foreign letter sound. For us, that's not leg, it's reg, reg. And we've been talking about that root the whole time. The whites and their offspring say leg, to releg, relegio, relegi, religi, and so forth. We say rec, list, catalog, statement, summary, account, report, contents of a document, a detailed statement and account, to be wise, to know, to be acquainted with, and so forth. So you're picking out things and you're listing them, then you're gathering them together and collecting them, picking, gathering, collecting, taking an account. Remember, that's the Indo-European root leg. That comes from reg, a summary, account, report, list, catalog, statement, pulling them together. So the term leg, meaning pulling things together, picking, gathering, accounting, is stolen directly from reg, from our language. They didn't come up with that. And then when you have to be wise, to know, and then you also have binding. When the spirit comes down and possesses the person, it binds itself to the person. That's rek. To lek or rek, to bind itself. And when the spirit binds itself to you and brings the knowledge of creation from the great mother, great father, Amen and Amenet, into the human sphere, the Black community, then you're bringing enlightenment, you're bringing wisdom, rek, knowledge, rek, you're binding, rek, you're helping people to rebind themselves, rek or lek, to rebind to the Supreme Being, the great mother and great father, to divine wisdom, so we can realign ourselves with order. So to re-lek is to rear, rek. That comes directly from our language. Re is ours, rek or lek is ours. And you even have, rek, re, to be skilled in mouth, wise in speech. So there, what you have is to releg or to rebind. They had no idea that lek, meaning to gather, pick, choose, pull together for understanding, and lek, meaning to bind. And therefore, oh, well, maybe religion has something to do with binding you to the divinity. Well, actually, there's a class of lek or rek spirits that literally bind themselves to the body of people during ritual. So once they bind themselves, they can bring the divine wisdom of creation into the human vessel, and it can be shared with the community. So that's the origin of the term re-lek. It's re-rek, comes directly from our people. And we have not only the linguistics to prove that, but the cosmology that undergirds it. The whites and our offspring have no knowledge of that. So no white writer or scholar has ever given you the origin of the term re and leg and religion, because they didn't have that knowledge. And they weren't capable of doing that. And no Black scholars put that out until we put it out. So now the term spirit. Hold on a second. Let me make sure. Okay, and of course, if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat room. We're going to get to some questions and everything. I just want to go through the spirit or seperet part, and then we'll be done with that portion, and we can answer some questions. And for those who are unaware, if you came in a little bit later, we're reading from REKHIT HENA SPERET. It's one of the 31 books I published, and I put 12 of my 31 books together in a large volume and anthology, which is Odwirafo, True Historical Anthology, 8.5 by 11, 600 pages. And what we're looking at right now get to it real quick. we're in the REKHIT HENA SPERET section of the book. That's what we're dealing with. And I'll put the link in the chat room where you can purchase the book. Since you're a subscriber, follower, you can get it automatic 30% discount. All right. So let's look at SPERET or spirit. So this notion of I'm not into organized religion, that's silly for a Black person to say, because we know who the Rek and Rekhitu are. If you say you're not into organized religion, well, the Rekhit and Rekhitu, the Rek spirits, they organize us to get in harmony with divine order through spirit possession, where we engage in spirit, ritual song, ritual dance, ritual chant, ritual movement, and so forth. And the spirits come down. That's an organized process. We're organizing the Rekhit to re-leg or re-rek or re-lik, legio and so forth, or religion and so forth. We organize that process. We have certain ritual chants, songs, dances in an organized fashion to bring these spirits down, the Rek spirits down, to communicate the divine order of creation to us so we can realign our community in harmony with the order in creation, with the Great Mother and Great Father Supreme Being. So to try to deny that is absurd. And only the offspring put forth these foolish notions because they have a false, they've always put forth a false definition of what religion is because they're the ones who corrupted deliberately our ancestral religion in the first place. Okay. One second. All right. I don't want that to be blocked. Okay, so this is a quote from the Shatan Duat, the book of the Duat, the 12th hour of the night, the book of what is in the spirit realm. It says, those who are in this image take the towing of the rope of the boat of Ra. When he comes forth from the serpent, Ankh Toru, and they tow this great deity into the sky and lead him along the ways of the upper sky. It is they who make to arise in the sky the gentle winds and humid breezes, and it is they who order those who live upon earth to place themselves in the great boat in the sky. Now, that particular quote, let me just go back. This is page 496. Earlier in our anthology, that particular text, what they're talking about right there, of them pulling the boat of Ra with a great cord, and there are 12 servants, the Amkiu, who are pulling that boat. That's found in a specific papyrus, and that particular papyrus is actually in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. And when you visit the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, you can see that particular papyrus, and you can get the actual source, primary source document for that. We can read things and we can download them from the internet and we can get that information. But this is the actual papyrus. When I was in Kamit, last time I was in Kamit, I took this picture with my phone and so forth. This is Ra as Afura in his boat. This is in the 12th hour of the night. The servants are standing upon the great serpent called Ka Msoru, and Afura is about to move inside the Ka. That's Afura moving in the Ka, and this is the serpent right at the place where the sun is about to come out of earth. So he's the primordial earth mound, that serpent and so forth, and Afura is moving inside the primordial mound. That is Afura Ka, the mound Ka, land of Afura, the land of the creator, the creatress. When the first mound rose up at the beginning of creation and burst through the surface of the water to become the first landmass of earth, they would say the sacred serpent is the one that's pushing that landmass up. He's the great Ka within that landmass, and the landmass is called Ka itself. And when Afura moves within the Ka, it is the Ka, the land, the primordial first land of Afura, Afura Ka. the land of the creator, and the feminine aspect is Afurai Kayat, the land of the creatress. And we talked about that in the previous session. But that's the particular text, and we have that primary source. So why is that important? When Ra is coming forth and so forth, Ra is the creator of the universe, Ra'et is the creatress of the universe. Now, they are the great spirit animating all of the created universe and so forth, the naturally occurring entities in creation, the divine living energy permeating all of creation, the black substance of space, planets, sun, moon, stars, and everything else, oceans, rivers, mountains, all of that. Now, when they possess the Aten and Atenit, the sun, then Ra and Ra'et are operating within the sun. They created the Aten, Atenit. That's the male and female terms for sun. The sun god's name is Aten. The sun goddess's name is Atenit. And just like I can get possessed by a spirit and there's a spirit operating within me, just like you're driving a car, as we always say, and somebody gets in the car with you and you get in the passenger seat or the back seat, and now they have control of the wheel. There are two individuals in the same vessel, and the person who just got in is controlling the vessel. You can see what's happening, though, but they're in control. That's what happens when someone gets possessed. The spirit takes up residence in the same body. Your spirit takes the background. They take the foreground. They use your arms, legs, and so forth to communicate with the people and touch and heal. And then the spirit leaves. They get out the car, the vessel, and you take back control of your vessel. So Ra will possess the sun, Ra'et will possess the sun, Aten, Atenit, and utilize it to project their spiritual energy. But they are not the sun god and sun goddess. Aten and Atenit are the sun god and sun goddess. Now, Ra and Ra'et are the great spirit animating all of creation. The term for a spirit in the context of a divine living entity, a solar fire entity and so forth, is called Ba for males and Ba'et for females. You have a Ba, a spirit that animates your physical body, just like solar energy getting inside your body and permeating your entire body and firing you up and so forth, operating within the air and so forth that you breathe in and so forth, but the solar energy is moving throughout your entire body, throughout your cells, throughout the oxygen. You have a divine living energy, a spirit, your Ba, if you're a male, Ba'et, if you're female, that's permeating your entire spirit body and physical body as well. That's the spirit. Since Ra and Ra'et are the great divine living energy permeating all of creation, they are the great Ba and the great Ba'et. And just like there's air outside that surrounds the entire planet, and you take a little portion of that air and pull it into your lungs, and it, vitalizes you and animates you. In the same fashion, the spiritual energy of Ra and Ra'et permeate all of creation. We take a little portion of that solar fire inside of us, and we have a little Ba or a solar fire within us. We have a little portion of the great Ba, the great Ba'et. So, in ancient Kamit, they showed the Ba and Ba'et sometimes as a human-headed bird, the head of the human being that they're talking about. Sometimes just the bird itself with a bowl of burning incense with a little flame arising. Sometimes it's a bird with a solar disk on its head to show it's a winged bird, meaning animate, and then the solar disk or the little burning bowl of incense with the flame, fire. So the Ba, the spirit, is defined as a winged